Good morning. My name is Morna Murray. I'm here as Executive Director of Disability Rights Rhode Island. Someone asked me earlier why the name change. Most of the PNAs in the country go by the name Disability Rights and the name of their state. And so we are identifying a little bit more with our national network to give people a sense of how strong we are as a network. Steve mentioned it, but just to explain a little bit, we're authorized by Congress and there's a federally mandated PNA in every state and territory. In fact, the system was triggered in 1972 when
what's a PNA?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Protection and Advocacy. Protection and Advocacy Agency.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was triggered in 1972 by a series of investigative reports by Geraldo Rivera of the Willowbrook Institution on Staten Island, which was a horrendously abusive and neglectful situation. And that led to the passage of a series of federal laws beginning in 1975. So we're here today to announce, and very, very proud and happy to be here with ACLU, with the National ACLU Prison Project. Again, I echo Amy's comments about the very brave plaintiffs, and grateful for our lawyers, Ann Mulready and Brian Oddie, who have worked so hard for so many months. My goal here, and just very briefly, is to describe to you, hopefully, even though no one can possibly describe what solitary confinement is like who has not experienced it, on the basis of the many, many months of direct interviews and monitoring that we have done, I want to share just a little bit with the people in this room. A solitary cell typically has a solid steel door with a small surveillance window and a slot for sliding food. There's no window or access to fresh air. Size-wise, a cell is about as big as a parking space. Individuals have a combination sink and toilet, and they must eat, sleep, urinate, and defecate in their cells. Very often the lights are on for 24 hours a day. If anyone here has a family member with mental illness, you are aware of how critical sleep is for anyone suffering from mental health issues. People in solitary can find it difficult to sleep or even to rest. They can become disoriented, not knowing the time, date, or even whether it is night or day. If recreation is permitted in Rhode Island, it takes place in quote-unquote rec pens. These are barren cages that are roughly in size to a large dog kennel. Some prisoners have no exercise or outdoor time for months on end. As a matter of policy, individuals are shackled, cuffed, and strip searched when they leave their cells, even for routine appointments such as medical. These strip searches are degrading and humiliating. It is small wonder that individuals with mental illness or a history of trauma may refuse to leave their cells if that is what they must endure and able to do so. Contact visits and telephone calls are rare if they are allowed at all. People in solitary confinement can go for months without touching another human being. Since normal communication and talking is impossible, individuals can end up yelling in a futile attempt to be heard. They may scream, rattle, and kick at their doors in desperation. There is no relief for any of these stressors. This can continue for weeks, months, and even years. Despite knowing the documented harms of solitary confinement, the Rhode Island Department of Corrections subjects prisoners with severe mental illness to solitary even when they engage in desperate acts of self-harm and self-mutilation. You can read multiple examples of this in our complaint. The most widely documented consequences of solitary are its psychological effects, as Amy was speaking about. These include anxiety, ranging from stress to full-blown panic attacks, depression, increased anger ranging from irritability to outbursts of violence, cognitive disturbances including disorientation and hallucinations, paranoia, and psychosis, including increased risk of suicide and self-harm. And with all this research at our fingertips, people in solitary confinement receive minimal contact with mental health clinicians at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections. Professional mental health contact often consists only of brief, quote, cell front encounters in which the staff member shouts through the cell door at the prisoner. Many prisoners reported that meetings with mental health staff often occur within earshot of both officers and other prisoners, and they do not feel comfortable discussing such private matters in an open setting. At one of the 10 hearings held by the Rhode Island Special Commission on Solitary Confinement hearings in 2017, Lewis Servo, a psychologist and the former director of behavioral health for Rhode Island Department of Corrections, testified that in 2016, RIDOC had only 11 clinical social workers to provide care for 3,000 prisoners. This is despite the fact that, in his words, RIDOC is, quote, the largest psychiatric hospital in Rhode Island. Compounding this minimal mental health treatment in solitary confinement is RIDOC's pattern of force as a first resort in reaction to what is often disability-related behavior on the part of prisoners with mental illness. In many instances, the use of force and pepper spray in particular is completely unnecessary to control behavior or maintain order in the facility. Instead, it is often an overreaction to disability-related behavior by staff who lack adequate training in the signs and symptoms of mental illness and de-escalation techniques for people who suffer from mental illness. Today, we at Disability Rights Rhode Island, with our partners and our attorneys and the brave plaintiffs in this action, are here to say, enough is enough. We've heard enough and we've seen enough and we know enough. But most of all, prisoners with severe mental illness have suffered enough. RIDOC has knowingly continued a practice that is harmful, dangerous, and wrong. It is well past time to eliminate this inhumane and unconstitutional practice, a practice to which literally hundreds of our constituents have been and are being subjected as a matter of state policy. This is fundamentally a form of torture for people with serious mental illness. It must stop. Thank you.